And we're live. Sai, how we doing?
Doing good. Good to see you again. It's been way too long.
It has, man. It's been a while. I'm basically what I'm trying to do with all these crazy podcasts is basically recreate, the hallway track at a
Right?
conference,
I was thinking
except
that this morning.
except with one minor difference being it's all entirely public. That's the only like minor tweak, to the whole deal.
No, I think that's pretty good. Everybody else gets to be lurkers. I think it would be great if
Yeah,
there was a better way to have group conversations and stuff that would go pretty well. But
it
uh,
would.
I think that what you're doing right now with these recent Mage Talk episodes has been pretty good.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's one of those weird things where like when you're in a hallway track, like it's just so natural to start a conversation, but when you're at home, remote, whatever, like it's kind of weird to be like, "Hey, want to have a phone call?" Whereas it's like, "Hey, want to do a podcast?" It's kind of like, "Yeah," like it sort of is just easier to do in some strange way.
Interesting you bring that
Um,
up. There have been a lot of times where I just have sort of felt like I want to reach out to somebody, just say, "Hey, how you doing?" But then I'm like, well, I don't want to put one more meeting on their schedule, and then it's
yeah,
like
yeah,
everybody's overwhelmed with work. It's just too much.
yeah.
So yeah, maybe you're onto something here.
I was talking to somebody about that recently about the same. I think everybody feels that way, and it's like you feel kind of awkward about like reaching out to set that up. There's a certain amount of friction involved. Like that's basically what the hallway track removes is that friction because you just walk right up to each other and start talking. But like I was talking to somebody about that recently, and they were like, "Yeah, I'm gonna just start calling people more and stuff." And like we've had a couple calls in the past that I really enjoyed, just random phone calls and stuff. And um, but anyways,
Yeah,
so
maybe we
I,
should all
I
try to
am
just be more social, huh?
yeah, pretty much.
All
So
right.
how is life treating you right now? In the time of COVID, all of the madness that's going on, the fires. How is Sai doing overall right now?
Overall, doing pretty good. I think this is sort of the perfect apocalyptic year for somebody like me. I'm kind of naturally a little introverted, like to just dig in and get work done, and I don't mind being by myself, So,
I thought you were
um,
going to say naturally a little apocalyptic.
maybe I do like zombie movies an awful lot. Maybe a little too
Okay,
much. Anytime a
right,
new zombie computer game comes out, I have to play it with my daughter and kill
right,
some zombies.
right. I kind of feel like you would be like at least a borderline prepper. Like I aspire to be like a tiny bit of a prepper. Like I want to have like a couple weeks of supplies at least, if not like a full year. But I feel like you seem like a guy that's prepared. Like if things went south, you seem like you have some stockpiles of some supplies and stuff. Um,
I do like to think that I have some skills. I've got some hobbies that would be useful in a post-apocalyptic scenario.
like
Got
you
my ham
definitely have
radio.
a pocket knife. You definitely seem like a guy with a good quality pocket knife,
Yeah.
like, like we're on a podcast and you got a pocket knife, right? Like, see, this is
I
exactly
always
what
have a
I'm
pocket
talking about.
knife.
This,
Yeah.
this is what I'm
I got a
talking
ham
about.
radio sitting on the shelf over there. Yeah.
Wait, do you really?
Yeah.
Do you really
I
have a ham radio?
Yeah. Some of those books back there, my ham radio manuals and stuff.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah. I don't know. I have lots of hobbies.
Yeah.
I don't know. Meg has made fun of me in the past, or my daughter loves to make fun of me. Like I get into all the old lady hobbies, or the old man hobbies, like ham radio or like gardening. Gardening. I'm a big time gardener. Love
Nice.
gardening, canning produce from the garden. I love canning.
Right.
Like I love
Right.
eating something I canned like 2 years ago. It's great.
That's great. I feel
Making
like
my own beer. I can make my own beer, man. If the apocalypse comes and there's no more beer, we're solid.
you're so ready, dude. I'm heading straight for, if California survives as a state, and the apocalypse does hit, I am heading straight for your compound. I mean, I feel like that's
I don't
gonna
know.
be
I don't know. You're in
one of the
Texas.
safest.
You're pretty solid there, right? Except there's no
Well, yes.
water. Yeah.
Is there really no water? I feel like we have water. I mean, I
Oh,
definitely
oh,
have
I
water.
guess on your half of Texas, there's a little water.
There's a little- I'm right smack in the middle of Texas, um, right smack in central Austin, but
Yeah,
central Texas.
yeah, there's a nice little
So
river going through there.
yeah, yeah, it's so funny because when we moved from lived in California my whole life, and everybody is like, there's no beach, you're moving away from the beach, there's nothing at all to do. And it's like there's so much water here, there's lakes and rivers and swimming holes. And I feel like we're closer to the water now than we used to be. um just because it's more accessible, and going to the beach is just such a like it's like an hour and a half drive to the beach, and it's just like it's so crowded, you can't park, it costs $97 just to park somewhere. So versus just heading over to the lake, and you're hanging out in the water is kind of neat.
Yeah. Well, every place has a different set of amenities and things that makes it awesome. And one of the core patterns of human civilization is people always settle where there's major rivers or harbors along the ocean,
Right,
et cetera,
right,
big lakes.
right,
So
right.
at least most of the cities are like that. When I make a joke about Texas having no water, that's because I've driven from California to Texas before. And there's an awful lot of pretty arid areas out west of Texas.
Yeah,
It's some pretty desolate country. Pretty
it
fun though.
is. Yeah, no, it is wild.
It's
When I
beautiful.
drove out here, there's parts that are great. When I drove out here through West Texas, it was just no man's
Mhm.
land. And I remember it was like in the middle of the night, we stopped at this gas station, and it was my first time in Texas. We had just crossed the border, and I felt like I was in like this new land, like this wild, wild west or whatever, even though I was going east. And we went into this gas station, and I swear to God, I'm pretty sure somebody was about to shoot somebody in that gas station. Like there was a couple of guys with that look, and I was like, I gotta get out of here quick. So, it was interesting. So I want to give you a real softball infomercial esque question to start things off, which is, how is cyberware different from other digital advertising agencies? And I actually do think there's a lot of things that make you guys really unique. So, but it is nonetheless a very infomercial-esque question. So I have to give that
We got to get
preface.
the infomercial out of the way so then we can move on to everything else, right? So,
Well, this is it. This is the meat of it. Like I
yeah,
think
yeah,
you
yeah.
guys are really unique, and I want to hear all about it, you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Cyberware is an e-commerce advertising agency. We really focus in tight on e-commerce advertising, kind of mid-sized e-commerce merchants. Um, if
What does
these
mid-size
merchants,
mean to you, by the way? Because
mm,
mid-market, mid is such a,
yeah,
right?
I,
So
I
how
would
do you
say this:
define that?
our largest client isn't in the Fortune 500, but they're not too far away. Right. So we're not going after the really, really big brands that everybody knows. We're too small for that, and that's not really our niche. But we're also not going after serving the really, really small merchants who often just they're not going to be able to engage in some of the more complicated, more costly things. But it's like if it's a small mom and pop, they're probably a little too small because they haven't reached a level where they have enough complexity that they need a team like ours. So really, but we some of our clients do a few $1 million a year in sales. Some of our clients do over $1 billion a year in sales. But it's that
Wow.
it's a pretty big range, but that's real solid mid market in America.
Yeah.
I know the
Is
scale's a
I
little different
wonder,
in different countries.
yeah, I wonder, is it like the Fortune 5,000? Is that like, I keep trying to find a way to define this thing, this mid-market thing. Would you say it's because like revenue bands are probably tough to quantify.
Well, yeah,
Um
and I think that the revenue is less important. I mean, that's a common number that people will talk about, although most smaller companies don't want to reveal how much money they're making, right? Larger public companies all do. But it's more about on the lower end. Once people get to a certain level of sophistication and complexity, it's too much for them to manage themselves, and they have too many problems with trying to switch on automated AI systems to solve all their problems. And
Mhm.
you reach a certain level of sophistication where stuff's breaking. There's
Mhm.
some problems and you don't know how to solve them, and
Yeah.
that's the kind of situation that's great for us. So
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
focused on those e-commerce merchants that get to that level of sophistication. The off the shelf stuff isn't working for them. Their integrations are breaking. They've got data issues connecting from their e-commerce site over to Google Shopping, stuff like that. And we're really good at all that stuff. So we're really good at the data and integrations. The other thing I'd say that sets us apart from a lot of digital marketing companies is it's so cliche, I almost don't want to say it, but we've got a crazy strong focus on profitability. So most of the people in this space are focusing on top line growth, revenue growth, and that's all fine and
Return on
dandy.
ad
I,
spend,
I
stuff like
love
that.
I love talking about it, but I also love hating on metrics like return on ad spend because it doesn't capture the nuance of what's really going on in a complicated e-commerce company with a lot of different product lines. They've got different gross profit margins across all of them. Maybe some of them have additional costs because you're doing free shipping on some, but not others. Different price points or average order values. And so it changes the profitability of different types of sales of different products across your product line. And so if you're just looking at that revenue number, you're not actually making really solid decisions about driving profitable growth for the enterprise. So that's something we really get into a lot, and we geek out on.
And you were at in-house with a merchant with clear bags for a good chunk of time. So I feel like that also makes you unique because basically, I assume sort of did all this in-house for a merchant, and like all the challenges, the nuances, what it's like to deal with different vendors and all the ways that vendors tend to frame things. And whereas I'd imagine, I don't know a ton about the digital ad agency space, but I imagine there's a ton of them that all they've ever done is be a digital ad agency and optimize return on ad spend because that's what makes sense for their business to focus on. So I feel like that probably also makes you guys unique as well.
Yeah, and that's really why we focus so exclusively on the e-commerce market. We didn't start out being a Google ad agency. We started out coming from the Magento merchant side of things. And most of the people on my team I've hired from Magento merchants. So almost everybody on my team was either a developer in-house at a Magento merchant, or for an agency working for Magento merchants, or working in the marketing or e-commerce side of the business. So
Yeah.
that is something where I do feel we've got an ability to relate to what's going on, and also to relate to some of the internal struggles and politics that go on. When I talk about the data and integration pieces, I mean, in a lot of companies, that's really hard to get right because you got an IT department, you got an outsourced dev agency, you've got an advertising agency, you got the marketing team, maybe you've got a different e-commerce team. Whose responsibility is the shopping feed? Who's got the power to
Right.
actually fix problems that occur without kicking it back and forth between all these different people? And 2 months later, they didn't do it right because the developer didn't understand the marketer's needs, and they had some other data issue getting information out of their, out of their PIM system, or out, syncing stuff to their ERP system. It's
Yeah.
chaos. So
Yeah.
we like to just dive into the middle of that and say, hey, we'll take the heat on this. We will fix this.
And how do you do that? How do you communicate that? You probably have some general strategies and approaches and the ways that you manage expectations with a client.
Sure.
How do you go in there? Do you say, listen, we own like, how do you deal with all the different and I'm sure it varies, of course, by the size and the scale of the merchant, but if you give me a few examples of different scales, like how do you get in there and handle all that?
It
You
varies
pull out your
widely.
pocket knife on the conference call and you go.
It varies widely. I've got to say, so for example, right now we've got one of our merchants is having a problem with stock availability in their shopping feeds, and it's a challenge because the people in the e-commerce team can't fix the data that's coming out of their back end inventory system, and they need to give us inventory data for us to be able to correctly determine if products are in stock or out of stock, and if they should be advertised or not.
Hmm. That
we're
seems
having
like a
some
fundamental thing to get
we're
right.
having some challenges because the developers involved have other priorities right now. They're up against tight deadlines. They can't give attention to this trivial little thing over here. The website
Right.
works, and they're working on rolling out a major new deployment, a major release. They've got to focus
Right.
on that and that deadline.
Right. 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 Right.
So sometimes you got to whip out the pocket knife, and the pocket knife in this case is okay. We're just going to scrape all the product pages on your website every few days, all 60,000 of them, and we're going to check to see if you're displaying whether the product is in stock or not to your customers. And if you're saying it's in stock, then we're going to go ahead and integrate that data into the shopping feed. So sometimes you got to whip out the Swiss
Nice.
Army knife, and you've got to
Now,
actually have the capability to solve some of these problems. So that's what we do
I l-
if we
I
have to.
really I love that ability to get in and take ownership of things. How do you, as a business, how do you price that? Is that something that you have to charge for that time? Or do you just say, hey, we're going to do this. We're going to take the time to do it. And you already have a fee structure that's a percentage based. If you can share those types of details, because that's that, like, I'm sure everybody would love to do that in the sense of, hey, let's solve the problem, but then their business model prevents them from doing it. If they're charging by the hour, then they might not be able, because the client might want to not want to pay for that, and then you get into this messy situation.
Yeah. So most of the time we do charge a percentage of the ad spend that we're managing as a fee. And that is going to include, different things for different clients based on what their actual needs are, what platforms they're advertising on, all the integrations we're managing, et cetera. But from the very beginning, we've decided to take a very broad view on what scope is. So I don't like to tell clients no, and I don't like to have a problem that we're not going to solve unless their finance department gives permission to the e-commerce department to spend, $500 on a few hours of labor or something, right? I don't like
Yeah.
those things causing problems. I take the view that we're responsible for achieving profitable growth for their company in the advertising systems. So anything that's going to affect our ability to deliver profitable growth is in scope. We will find a way, right? So
Nice.
we kind of take that approach, and we don't nickel and dime people for extra little
Right.
fees all over the place. There's one
Right.
fee. Everybody knows what it is. We take a really
Right.
broad view, and we really
Right.
try to work with people to solve a lot of different problems. And it works out pretty well most of the time.
Yeah, that's cool. I love that approach. Are you guys still, I believe at one point you were exclusive to Magento. Are you still exclusive to Magento? Are you broadening out a little bit?
Well, we have some natural broadening that's occurring over time. We certainly started out focusing just on Magento, and it's really where we focus on Magento in our marketing. We go to Magento events, but we've also had clients that left Magento and went over to BigCommerce or Shopify, and we
Mhm.
followed them and implemented all of our processes and systems on those platforms as well. We've had some other clients come in that are on entirely different platforms. One of our clients is on a custom platform that they've been running for the last 20 years and actively developing in-house the entire time. That still exists
Nice.
in the real world. And that's actually a neat experience as well, because they've got the technical people in-house to work with us to get all those integrations just perfect and solve the data problems and so on. So that's
Yeah.
that's that's a totally fine situation as well. So I guess I'd say at this point, more than half of our clients, maybe close to two thirds are on Magento, and the rest are a scattering of Shopify,
Nice.
BigCommerce, custom stuff.
Nice. Yeah.
So,
And then so you were saying that, when it comes to Magento, different platforms, all the platform wars, you were
yeah,
saying that it's interesting because everybody's so focused on all these kind of platform things. And then you've been seeing some things changing with Google Shopping, the way
yeah.
Google product feeds are handled, and new functionality that they're releasing that you feel like people are not aware of, not really focused on. It's kind of changing the game a little bit. So I'd love to learn some more about that.
So there's a lot of stuff coming out of Google this year in particular. They obviously realized early on that the pandemic was going to really drive a lot more traffic to e-commerce sites, and they've been prioritizing their deployment of additional features for e-commerce merchants. But the one of the really interesting things is the Google Shopping Actions program, which to a lot of people just know that as Buy on Google or Google Shopping. So they've aggregated all of the shopping ads that people are already running onto this shopping.google.com site, and then a little while back they started rolling out basically what's a competitor to Amazon, a Google shopping site with where you list your products on the site and you can complete a transaction at shopping.google.com, and then the individual merchant ships the products. So one of the interesting things they did a couple months ago is announce that they are going to move from having a 12% commission on sales to having a 0% commission model. And
Wow.
this is very interesting, and it made something that was a more technically complex integration. A lot of people didn't want to do it. A lot of people didn't want to pay 12% commission. Just like a lot of people don't want to sell on Amazon and pay their 15 or whatever it is over there, right? Similar sort of scenario where a lot of merchants just don't want to give that cut right off the top to them. But the thing is now it's zero. And so Google's had to make a few changes to how that works, like integrating with third-party payment providers. So they're going to use the merchant's own payment account on PayPal, for example, to process the credit cards. Google's not going to process the cards since they're not charging you for anything, right? But it's basically making it so merchants of any size, if they've already got their product data going into Google Merchant Center, with a little bit of extra work, signing up for the program, integrating a PayPal account for payments, they can now get their products listed on shopping.google.com. They're exposed to a lot more people searching, and they're exposed to whatever comes out in the future with the digital assistants and so on, placing an order for you just like Amazon's doing. They're really trying to push this platform. And for merchants, this is something where the costs are minimal. I mean, there's a little added work in integrations. You got to be able to process those orders, get things shipped, deal with customer service issues, just like you would if you were selling on Amazon. It's very similar, but the costs are so much lower. It's kind of creating a stampede of a whole lot of people saying, well, it doesn't cost very much now. Let's try it. And I think the fascinating thing about that is if that continues, that's like going beyond the idea of moving your e-commerce platform into the cloud. That's like, I don't even have an e-commerce platform. If that's the direction a lot of merchants go, where they say, I don't even need to run Shopify or BigCommerce or Magento, that's irrelevant. Those are big cost centers. I got to do all this stuff, create all this branding I don't want to do. If somebody just wants to sell their products on a really wide marketplace and keep as much of the money as possible, they can sell on Amazon, they can sell on Google. Why do I need a platform?
Right.
So,
and so is this so that I've seen so many of these different Google's things around shopping and aggregating products. I've lost track of them all by now, but so I do remember seeing that recently. Is that how much are consumers using that? I'm curious to know. And are they also pulling this into Google search results? Because I feel like that's the main place that they give so much exposure to products because everybody's on Google search.
yeah. So recently, Google has also started integrating more of the product listings, even if you're not selling through that Buy on Google or the Shopping Actions program. They're integrating product data that people put into their shopping ads into free organic product listings that are showing up on shopping.google.com and some of their other properties. They just started rolling some more features out here. Within the last couple months, they also did the same thing with local inventory feeds. So if you have a series of stores and you put the work into getting your local inventory, what's in each store, into your merchant center feeds, those products can show up to people doing local searches on things like Google Maps or shopping.google.com, et cetera. In various places, they see a product listing and you're not even paying for it. It's free organic results from the product listings. And this is driving some interesting behavior as well, because some pure play e-commerce merchants have never considered doing a product feed for local inventory if they don't have a local store. But many of them still will use something like they'll set up their shipping on Shipper HQ or something. They'll set up a local pickup radius around their warehouse, and they will still allow people to buy online and pick up at their warehouse. Well, if that warehouse is actually in a big metropolitan area, or even in an industrial park area surrounded by businesses that could be, if it's a B2B company, surrounded by some people that could be their customers, if they put a little bit of extra work now into getting the local inventory into Google, those products just magically start showing up. And how that's going to change and evolve in the future, we don't know. How they're going to, show things on the main Google search versus searching on Google Maps, et cetera. That'll probably change and evolve based on the results of what actually happens. But Google is also doing a lot of pushes on advertising on YouTube, right? They're really pushing YouTube right now as well. People are staying at home watching an awful lot of video. And, we all go to YouTube to look at unboxing videos and, a demo of some product that we're thinking about buying. And I mean, just think logically about what direction this is all going in right now, right?
Yeah.
We're moving towards here's the unboxing video and here's the product based ads for it, and here we can complete the purchase right here inside the app,
Right.
right?
Right.
And it's all
Right.
integrated with my Google Wallet on my Android phone and all this sort
Right.
of stuff. So
Right.
this is what I'm saying. It's like some of this stuff is
Who cares about
evolving
the
in a
fluffy?
very interesting way. So
Yeah.
BigCommerce versus Magento, that's a valid discussion for a lot of people, but there's other things going on that are kind of on a different level right now. And
Well, in
I
this
kind of
kind of that's like a component of headless. I mean, that kind of touches into headless, where maybe there's a lot of different things you do in your ecom platform for customer support and order management and inventory, like, or maybe you have separate systems for all those things, but and then you're doing a lot of stuff on Google and then processing transactions as well, maybe. Um, it's it's interesting, but I had a follow-up question that I've just forgotten now about yeah, about the last thing you were talking about.
I was talking about
Um,
YouTube, buy on Google, the local inventory ads.
ads on that's what I was gonna say was I recently started paying for YouTube so that I don't have to see the ads anymore, and it is amazing. Like like I know you're in the business of ads,
Mhm.
but like, do you hate ads as much as as much as the
Yeah,
next guy? Like, do
I
you use YouTube Premium?
I don't like ads, really, frankly, unless they're really well targeted and it's actually something useful and interesting.
Yeah.
What I
Which
hate is
sometimes they are.
sure.
Sometimes they can be really good, you know.
Yeah, I'm scrolling on my phone and I accidentally click something, and then I'm seeing, some weird, crazy off the wall, advertisements for weird fetish sites for the next like 3 months or something, right? Because, they put me in some remarketing group for people that are interested in whatever I happen to accidentally click. And that happens all the time on YouTube. You got the little tiny little skip ad button down here. And when we actually look at a lot of the traditional advertising programs that people have tried on video platforms, you know how often you're trying to target somebody in a certain demographic, and mom goes home and she's cooking some dinner and she gives her phone to the kids who say they want to watch Frozen videos. The kids are sitting there clicking through, watching all these videos, clicking on all the ads on accident as they go. And you can
Yeah,
go look in
yeah,
the ad logs about who's been clicking on what, and you can just really clearly see those sorts of issues all the time.
yeah,
So that's part of the cost of doing business on some of these things. But that's actually why I am happy that they're really innovating and putting some new things into play, hopefully moving a little bit more away from putting ads in spots that accidentally get so many clicks. I mean, they
yeah.
know that's not what
Right,
anybody wants. That's
right,
not delivering a
right,
good experience to people. So
right,
if they engage in deceptive practices, they're going to get a whole lot more scrutiny from the FTC.
right,
They're going to get a whole lot more customers mad at them. So
right.
while some things like that have gone wrong at different points in history, most of the advertising platforms have been pretty good ultimately at taking that feedback and fixing those problems and improving the experience for their end users and for their advertisers, and also for
Yeah,
better legal compliance and privacy as well.
yeah. Yeah,
So
I mean, it's overall things are getting better and better with ads in general. Not only is ad content is getting better, but they're getting better at targeting it. And yeah, there's lots
yep.
of issues and things. We started watching this show on Amazon Prime. There's a couple of these shows on Amazon Prime like Heroes. My wife never watched the series Heroes, so we're watching that, and it's ad supported, right? So we watch it and it has the ads, but the ads are actually pretty good compared to like if you just watch TV. It's like we don't watch much TV, but if we're in like a hotel, with regular TV, like the ads are just worse. So like the ads on this Prime show tend to be better. There's also less of them. There's a little timer that shows you how much time you have left. So little things like that kind of improve the experience. Um, but yeah, like whenever our kids are watching YouTube, if they see an ad, we're always very concerned about like if like, oh, I saw this ad. We're like, we'll interrogate them like, which ad did you see? What was in the ad? Well, because they're just so like overprotect, and that's one of the reasons we want to pay for it, is so that our kids can just see stuff without some of the ads for like children's content are just also, that's something that I'm sure they're fine tuning, but some of that stuff can be a little off the wall.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, they've got a lot of policies around what you can and can't do, but there's no way to make a set of rules that keeps you from doing things that are tasteless and inappropriate, right? They can,
Yeah,
we have the same problems with the legal system, right? Like, you make a bunch of
yeah,
rules, but you can't carve out rules against every little thing without causing other problems and other unintended consequences. So
yeah, yeah.
that's that's another one of those areas we spend an awful lot of time on, is navigating the policy issues with things that are in that gray area. A lot
Right.
of customers have products that have challenges with the policy requirements on these platforms.
Right, right. Yeah. There's a guy I follow online that sells it's like a spy camera, but it's not for spying on people. It's for it's like a nanny cam, for example, where you just want to make sure that your kids are safe, kind of a thing.
Mhm.
And so like he got banned from Google recently, and it was like, it's like I can sort of understand the rationale behind that, but then you're also like, well, it's a useful product.
Yeah.
Um, Going back to the free listings, the free stuff they're doing. So you described a lot of different things, and I'm familiar with most of it, but like what stuff is free and what stuff is not free currently? I know you were talking about some of the local inventory stuff, and I know you're saying that stuff is going to continue to change all the time, but what are the freebies? I feel like people would love to know about, particularly,
So
anything you
if
can get for free.
if I'm going to pick three things that are currently free, that are kind of recent things you can take advantage of, free or free to do, that will improve your performance. So one of them is local inventory listings. If you have, even if you're only
So
shipping out of a warehouse,
all local inventory is complete ads are completely free on
no.
google.com.
So
Okay.
you can still buy ads for premium placements, but Google had, I think their advertising revenue suffered earlier in the years. A lot of businesses closed, and part of what they did to probably fill the inventory. I mean, I'm speculating. I don't really know what goes on here
Right.
behind the scenes, but
Right. Right.
they they started running the same product listings that you can pay for a placement underneath the paid slots. They're running free listings on
Gotcha.
the same pages. Okay.
Gotcha. Interesting.
So they had already been rolling this out on the main product data for e-commerce products, where you're going to click through to somebody's site, and that was rolled out, I want to say, sometime last year. But earlier this year in the
As a paid
springtime, or
thing.
as a
As a
free thing.
paid
So
thing.
if
Oh,
you
it's free
already
list.
had your products going into Merchant Center and you're running ads on them, they automatically opted you into also getting free listings on those as well.
Got it.
So now in the late spring, early summer timeframe, they expanded that to include, if you have a local inventory feed, which previously was just used for local inventory ads. Now we're showing free local inventory listings, so free local product listings for people searching for products around me. If I do a search for some fancy new gizmo, it's going to show me the listing of the Best Buy that's 5 miles down the road from me that has that product in stock, maybe. Right? There'll
Yeah,
be
I
ads
do
above
that
it.
all the time.
Yeah.
If I want to buy something from Home Depot or anything that's like not small enough that you want to just get on Amazon, I'd love to get it, or if I want to get it right away, I'd love to find it in person. I'm doing that all the time.
Yep. Now, if you're opted into that as well, not only do you get extra free listings, but if you go through, there's some extra stuff, you have programs you have to opt into, but they've also expanded some things for showing additional little annotations on top of the paid listings, where if you put the right data in your feed, opt into the right program, they'll tell you whether something's available for pickup today as a curbside pickup, touchless, right? So if I don't want to go into the
Right.
store, I want to buy it locally and I want somebody else to load it in my car for me when I buy it, we can
Right.
do that now, right? So that's a free extra little tag if you jump through the hoops to get the right data in there about which products are available for that in the local stores. So you got some data issues and some integration issues to solve, but
Hmm.
that's a no-brainer. That's really popular. And going into the holiday season, you know how many people do not want to go into stores packed with other people this year? Like,
Right.
everybody should be jumping on that. So, and
Right.
again, you can take advantage of those if you're pure play e-commerce as well, because you can do the local inventory at your warehouse if you're in a large population center where people would be prone to being able to
Right.
come and pick up if you're set up for that.
Right.
So
Right.
that's one set of things on the local side. Um,
And then if I can, sorry, just interrupt,
yeah.
I'll forget my question again. Are you seeing with, for example, these two that you just mentioned, are you seeing like the curbside pickup and things like that, I assume you're starting to roll those out and encourage your clients to use
Oh
those.
yeah.
Are you seeing great numbers on those?
I would say it's too early. We're rolling those out, but everything it's also really hard to gauge a lot of things this year. People's results have generally been really strong if they're taking advantage of all these programs. E-commerce merchants in general are doing great, but it also varies a lot by
Right.
company. We've had clients that got shut down entirely by local county health officers, and we've had
Right.
others that have just made more money per month every month this year than they normally make in the holiday season in a given year. So
Right.
it's all
Right.
all over the place.
Right.
Yeah. So let's see. We talked about local. The other thing is the shopping action. So that's something that is free in terms of what you're paying to Google. If you get all the integration with that set up, it's basically really easy to deal with that. But right now they don't have a lot of payment processors, and in fact, the only one that's currently set up on the platform is PayPal. But if you're already set up to accept PayPal, you can set up the shopping actions, the shopping actions program for Buy on Google, basically at no additional cost other than whatever you're going to spend with in integration and stuff, depending on how you're handling the labor costs involved on that. That's
Hmm.
something we do for our clients just as part of the services we provide.
Right. And are
The
you seeing that
mhm,
one? Are you seeing what kind of traction are you that so the Google Actions one, that's the one where people are purchasing on shopping.google.com.
mhm.
And are you seeing like decent numbers on that? Or is it hard to tell?
Hard to tell, too soon to tell. We're really just going through the process of getting people set up right now that previously wouldn't have participated in the program. Right.
Gotcha.
So
Yeah.
it's not that hard to get set up and go through the jump through the hoops. So but everything's really new, and they certainly don't have the traffic that Amazon does. Right. But it's Google. They're going to be sending traffic to this. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, think about it like this: what's the long term play here? They want to be the place you go to search for everything under the sun. So this is one giant global universal product database of anything you can buy.
Yeah.
If you think about it, that's kind of what Amazon is,
It's
and that's
kind of
what
what
Google.
Amazon is, and Google wants to compete with that, but
Yeah.
it's interesting because you'll go to Amazon and you'll try to buy something,
Mhm.
and like there was a time where you could trust the first result or the Amazon whatever it's called, the default choice, Amazon
Yeah.
authorized whatever,
Yeah, that's
um,
all paid now, one
or
way or the
yeah,
other.
right, one way or the other, right? Or you
Yeah.
could trust the star ratings, right?
No, no, not
You
at
can't
all.
Like you can't trust anything on Amazon anymore. Like, even the pictures are always completely the wrong scale. Like I recently bought like a vitamin organizer, and then when I got it, it was much like it's just yeah, it's so it maybe if it's good for them to be competing because there's
Yes,
so many things that are
it
like
will improve them both.
yes. Because there's just so many things. It's like Amazon is doing such a bad job of X, Y, and Z, but everybody still uses them because they're Amazon. They're baked in, they're the default. Um, so that's interesting. I guess I'm happy that they're competing,
Yeah.
you know.
So check out this other thing. I got to get this in here that every merchant needs to do right now, like
Let's
right now.
get
All
it
right.
in. Get
All
it
right.
in.
All right. Um, every merchant out there has, almost has their shopping feed set up to get data over to Google for running their shopping ads. That's almost, we won't say it's universal, but if you're a Magento merchant, you probably got shopping feeds. They changed the spec on that this year, and they made some additional fields that weren't there before that you can take advantage of. And these fields are really for providing a lot more detailed product information to Google. And that means Google's going to be able to take advantage of the data you're passing to do better matching between what a searcher is searching for and what product ads get displayed. So it has the potential to really improve shopping results for people that implement these. So basically, they've made a new attribute in the feed that allows you to basically pack it with your own arbitrary key value pairs of information about a product. So
Keyword stuffing is new again.
Uh, I would say they're going to come down pretty hard on people that just do keyword stuffing here.
Of course.
But
Yeah, yeah.
if think about your typical Magento site, down at the bottom under the product description, they're going to have some additional information, and you've got some attributes in Magento where you've said this is visible on the front end of the customer, and you've got customer focused labels on it. Maybe it's things that just additional information that might be specific to a given attribute set, a given set of products on your site, maybe specific to your industry. So Google's finally made it possible to take information like that you're displaying on your e-commerce site and pass it through into the shopping ad system.
That
And
is cool.
so you got to think there's multiple contexts that could be used, and what's going to happen with that. One is keyword matching for sure. Somebody searches for a very particular thing. I'm looking for this product with this attribute. Google recognizes that in the search term. They match it to the product better. But also that could probably start displaying over on the shopping.google.com system or other systems like that. Like that data is going to show up in other places. They've also made it
Mm,
possible to pass through like a bullet point list of what are the key product highlights. And that also could be shown
interesting.
in several different contexts for a very quick, scannable description of what this product really is and what really matters about it for an end user. So they're going to use that to present to end users because that's what it's designed for.
Right.
And they've also made some other changes to a variety of other fields where they used to be mandatory and now they're optional, or they used to be optional and now they're still optional, but if you don't fill them in, you're going to be penalized. So there's a whole set of additional fields right now that people should check back in on because they might find their shopping ad performance starts to dip if they're not filling in some of these optional attributes or newly required attributes.
Hmm.
So
Is
this is the
there
time.
This is the time. This is the time to
Yeah.
do that. Is there some kind of a product that will, like what you're saying about like, hey, there's these changes you got to be aware of. Is there like some product that will notify people automatically when all these changes roll out? Are these notifications they're already getting, but they're just probably not paying attention to? Like, I'm kind of thinking like, how can people just always know about all this important stuff all the time?
Well, you remember we were talking about company politics at a typical merchant and all the different people that might not be talking to each other. So,
Yeah.
who's getting the notifications? Right. So if the IT team or the developers are the ones that have access to the Merchant Center account and they have administrative access and they're
Right.
getting notifications on
Right.
stuff and they're just deleting them because it doesn't matter in their world,
Right,
they
right,
just
right, right,
disappear
right,
into the
right,
ether. So
right.
what I'd say is anybody who wants to stay up on these sorts of changes and announcements needs to make sure, first of all, that they have an account in their company's Google Merchant Center, right?
Hmm.
They have to have access. It doesn't have to be administrator access, but they do need to be in there. And then they need to go edit their notification settings and not just use the defaults. They need to say, I
Hmm.
want these notifications and these check them all. Check them
Hmm.
all, and then you can uncheck whatever you don't want later. But look at what's coming
Yeah,
through there.
gotcha.
And a lot of this stuff is posted on a couple changes. You can do a Google search for Google Merchant Center changes, and then there's like a blog style page where they just post announcements and
Hmm.
changes that are going on. But most
Gotcha.
people don't have a disciplined reminder set up to go check it every month to see what's new. And a lot of those
Right,
notifications just disappear into spam if you're not actually paying attention to them.
right, right. That makes sense. And the highlight bullet points that you mentioned, are those I like, is that like for your clients or people in general? Are they having to write those themselves for this? Is there existing content that they're able to repurpose to create that little snippet?
So the highlights, that's just the bullet point of product highlights, that's more difficult because if a given merchant doesn't already have that content in place, where do you pull the data from? So yeah, in that case, you have to put something together. However, many merchants already have bullet points that they're displaying. For example, maybe their short description is just a bullet point list with three key points on a product, and then they have the full product description down below. And in a situation like that, if you already have that data in your site, even if it's not fully covering all your products, you can grab it off the ones where it does exist and stick it into this new attribute with a little bit of code. So
Right.
we've also had situations where some of our clients write product descriptions in a very consistent and common format. There's this section, this section, this section, and we can just go through and parse that out and grab the bullet point lists that they're using in the middle of their product descriptions in the right place that we know are pretty much the right content, pull that in, and just ship it off to Google.
Right.
So there are ways of doing it. What I will say is if you're using a lot of the common feed generation tools that are the plugins to Magento that most people use, it can be a little harder to put extra code wrapped around, how to deal with that parsing and grabbing the right data and doing it consistently.
Got it.
So, yeah.
Now, what is your sort of general recommendation statement on the different feed plugins, extensions that there are. I know we've talked about this a little bit in the past. If I'm a merchant that's using XYZ extension, should I use it? Should I stop using it? Obviously, hiring you would be ideal if they can afford it, kind of a thing. But like, how do you also, when are you going to launch your own extension to do all this stuff? That'd be a great lead gen for you to build that.
I've actually thought about offering a feed generation service for free, just as a lead gen feature for managed advertising clients. The
Right.
thing is, um, I have used most of the feed generation extensions out there, and various third party sites that also pull data one way or the other and generate feeds. And I've kind of given up on that route with our clients. And again, the challenge is many of those things are things where the people that need to make the changes don't have the right access or the right technical ability. Everything has to go through a developer. If it's a Magento extension and you have to have admin access to the Magento site, do you really want your third-party advertising agency having an admin account to log into your Magento backend just to be able to make little changes there? So there's all these access issues. So we've kind of given up on that route as a good path forward, because you want whoever owns your advertising results needs to be able to fix the problems there.
Hmm.
So the solution that we hit on as Magento 2 was coming out was using these great APIs in Magento to pull product data out of our Magento clients' sites and generate the feed ourselves with our own backend systems, where we can write any code we need to solve any problem at all. So it also means we can pull data from other sources if we need to pull data from a inventory system, for example, or if every now and then we have to write some Frankenstein code to go scrape their product pages to figure out if
Good
a
old
product is in
fashioned
stock or not,
scraping.
right? Right?
Yeah.
Like, we have full power to fix the problem by doing that. So we've expanded that to the other platforms we work with now as well, where we'll connect via API. We grab all the product information, the inventory information that's on the e-commerce system, any other data sources we need, and we generate the feeds ourselves in our own code. So that's why I say, yeah, we've got some power there, and we do provide a feed management service as an independent service for people we're not managing their full ads on. And we've had
Oh,
merchants
okay.
take us up on that because they've had so many problems with not being able to get things solved, and nobody understands all the policy issues of what's causing the product rejections and so
Right.
on.
Right. That's
So
cool.
yeah,
That's
but
actually, I was just gonna say that, like, as much as I love the free extension, or the free service or whatever as a lead gen, it's one of those things that, like you said, the problems can be complicated to unwind as to why something isn't getting fixed, and it might be hard to create that really great customer experience, which is what I think you create. So I almost think having that standalone service to manage a feed, which is probably a much lower price point, is probably a better entry level thing for you guys to offer.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree with you. That's something that we definitely want to push more of, and
Yeah.
some of the stuff going on right now is actually making that pretty easy, because these new fields that they've just added are a little harder to just populate from a Magento attribute. You've got to have a little added code to go in there and scan through a number of attributes or parse some things out and make some different decisions, and it's going to be different on every merchant.
Hmm.
So in situations like that, trying to use an off-the-shelf feed gen tool that's just mapping in a Magento attribute, it's a little bit more complicated than that.
Yeah.
And the thing is most merchants have tremendous problems as well with all the different Magento product types. They'll include configurable products in their feed, and that violates Google policy. You're supposed to put all the individual variants. But then if you add all the child simple products to the feed, and they don't have individual landing pages, they have to land on the parent page, but then you have to customize all the URLs so they're landing on the parent page with the right options configured so it shows the correct product image and pricing. Because if the pricing's wrong, you violated Google policy, and you get into all these little weird nuances like that are a lot easier to fix if you just write the code to solve the problem right.
Right.
So we've And yeah, when you're dealing with different platforms as well, the thing is every platform has the same sort of problems of
That's what I was
landing
going to
pages
ask.
and product prices
Whether
and product variations and all that sort of stuff. They just do it a slightly different way under the hood, but they still have to conform to all the product feed specs on this stuff.
and the big commerces and Shopify's, they have these. Do they have also issues with their product feeds, or are their product feeds a lot tighter?
Everybody's got issues with anything new that comes out because the existing software doesn't support it yet, right? Um, and down the road, everybody's going to support it. But now think about this, okay? Uh, so maybe on a BigCommerce or Shopify, it's going to get supported and it's just going to magically exist. But on the Magento side, a new version of the shopping feed generator is going to come out. Now I've got to get somebody to install it, and then I've got to get it configured correctly. All that sort. It's there's some added hoops to jump through to get that solved on the Magento side. Um, but consistent, these same problems exist across all the different platforms in one form or another. I mean, they really
Gotcha.
do. And they can be more complicated. So you got to have like unique IDs on all your products in a shopping feed. And you get situations like when you're dealing with BigCommerce where you don't have to assign a SKU to an item. And then you've got some weird situations where you've got a bunch of products in your catalog that have SKUs, and that's their unique identifier. And then you've got some others that don't. So then you can fall back on like the record IDs. But then,
Mhm.
well, what if you have a SKU that's a number that happens to overlap? So you gotta start to jump through some different hoops to solve all these random crazy problems. And this is the sort of stuff that people are always kind of screwing up on the data side. These are the problems that cause an awful lot of the product policy disapprovals and stuff.
Right,
So,
right, 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 right. It's a hot mess.
and
Um,
yeah.
no,
It's
go
it's
ahead. I didn't mean
it's
to
always
interrupt you.
exciting. I don't know. It's like getting in and debugging these issues. It's like, oh, you got the political side of it, you got the data side of it, you got what's going on the code from the past, and what extension did they do, and why did they? It's some seriously interesting detective work. But
Yeah, yeah.
anyway,
It seems like you enjoy it, genuinely. You wrote a post on all the ways smart bidding is dumb.
yep.
And so I'm gonna do something super annoying, which is like every time I see one of your blog posts, I'm like genuinely interested in it, but not enough to actually read the full blog post because like I tend to like to learn by discussing things or short, snippets, tweets. So I'd like for you to give the overview, and I'm sure there's other people like me out there, who
Okay.
don't read TFM, as it were. So what's an overview on all the ways that smart bidding is dumb?
Okay. So every one of these ad platforms will follow a certain set of common principles about how you're going to bid for advertising clicks. And of course, you can do things like CPM bidding, buying thousands of clicks, or or how much you're bidding in the auction on a cost per click basis. You're bidding on individual clicks, or you're using some of this machine learning that's going to solve all the world's problems, just like in Terminator, where the machines are going to take over and they're going to figure out what all of your bids should be based on whatever goal you put in. And the challenge is that at least once you get past the smaller mom and pops, once you get into a more complex business, you've got a whole lot of different products, different shipping issues, different product margins, different promotional things going on that change what's going on with the profitability of different products constantly. And so far, no platform, no advertising platform out there that anybody uses has anything set up to allow you to try to optimize for increased profitability. They're always about optimizing towards a particular ROAS, or they're
Mhm.
optimizing towards increasing your revenue. And those are all great. They sound great. They're better than not optimizing for more money, right? But what it leads you into, especially when everybody else is doing the same sorts of things, it leads you into some interesting mistakes. So if you've got some products that are 10% margins and you've got some products that are 90% margins, and you say, hey, I want to get a 10-to-1 return on ad spend, and you set up those goals, you put it in there, and you throw a budget at it, and you just let Google go wild trying to get you a 10-to-1 ad spend. Now, what's going to happen is, of all those products, you'd probably like to have more of them that have the 90% margins. What's going to happen is, since other people out there that sell the products with the 10% margins, they're going to tend to bid lower on those. Google's going to say, well, let's throw more money at this stuff. because the bids are low. We can outbid all those people. You're going to get a whole lot more clicks on
Right.
that stuff. You're going to make more sales on that stuff. And you can be in a situation where you're like you're spending more on the sales than you're actually earning from them. But you're still hitting your
Is
10 to 1
there
ROAS goal, right? So
right?
the thing is, none of these systems take into account the different values of the different profit values of
Profit
what the
profit
sales can be, right?
profit margin. Is there a way to sort of weight, like I know you can't put a profit number or profit margin into the system, but is there like a weight attribute or something like that you can map to your profitability some way to kind of weight some products above others?
Uh, yeah, the way you do that is by passing in different conversion values in your conversion value tracking. That is the weighting. Like that you can't really weight the value from that point in most of these systems, right?
Got it.
So what you can do is you can do complicated structures where you're splitting out into all these different campaigns where you've got the right products, different margin products in different campaigns, so they all have different goals. Um, and that can be a fine way of solving some of these problems and still using the automated systems, but it depends an awful lot on what's actually going on with the level of volume, because you actually have to have a lot of data to use the machine learning systems and have them be able to start making effective choices. So if you've got a merchant that's maybe a little on the smaller side, but they're still sophisticated enough that they've got some real challenges to face, and they turn on an automated system, and if everything's in the same campaigns with the common goals, then you have issues with overselling the items that are less profitable. If you split it out into a whole lot of little campaigns, then the individual campaigns don't have enough data to actually make good decisions. So the AI goes off the rails and just tries all sorts of random things as experiments, and they don't work out. Like, there's all sorts of ways this stuff just falls flat. And navigating the complexity of that is, it's exciting. It's exciting. But the thing that I'll say is, most of the time, a well-structured set of campaigns in an ad, in a Google Ads account that is managed via old-style cost-per-click bidding can massively outperform what the AI can do if you can factor in all sorts of information about the products, the product prices, the product margins, and manage it down even to a SKU level of what should this product be bid at given the profit it's driving.
Mhm.
You just can't do that within the systems that the ad management platforms provide. That requires some extra work.
Yeah. What type of results are like typical for you overall? And like how do you frame them? Like I'm a merchant, does X amount of dollars online. Like do you shoot for X profit levels? Like how do you know, I'm imagining those commercials where it says something that says these results are not typical. But like what are the what like how do you answer that kind of a question?
I'm a little bit of an economics geek, not going to lie. I'm a closet economics nerd. So, what I want to do for everybody is to really understand their business model, what's driving profit into the organization, and to optimize towards maximizing the profitability. And there's a whole body of knowledge in microeconomics about what you need to do to optimize for profitability. And if you apply a lot of those concepts to what's going on actually in the auction systems, you can steer towards some pretty amazing results. But here's the deal. Those results are going to show up on a P&L, right? When you're actually looking at, we're getting more profitable sales. Um, when when we're talking to marketers, most people are talking in terms of the simplistic metrics like ROAS. I want a 10 to 1 on my returns, okay? So if a client really wants a 10 to 1 on their returns, we'll engineer things so they're getting their 10 to 1 on their returns, but then within the 10 to 1, we try to steer more of that towards more profitable sales rather than just 10 to 1 and not caring about the portfolio or the mix of products. We want more of those to be the more profitable products. And the thing is we can take that 10 to 1 and we can achieve that, and then we can make it a little more profitable, and it's not going to show up as any difference in the 10 to 1. They're still making a 10 to 1, but over on their P&L on the other side of the business, hopefully on the financial side, when they're looking at their numbers, they're ending up with more money on the bottom line at the end of the day. But the thing to understand about the metrics that people use, like saying I want a 10-to-1 return on ad spend or I want a 5-to-1, that is highly dependent on the business. Everybody has a different gauge of what they think they want to achieve. But here's the thing: any return measured in that way can be engineered. If you want a 5-to-1, I can give you a 5-to-1. If you want a 3-to-1, I
Whatever
can give
you
you that.
measure for
You want a
gets kind of
20-to-1, I can
optimized
give you
for.
a 20-to-1. Like and the thing is this is one of the biggest lies of the ad industry. Like, oh, most of our clients get a 10-to-1. We just do great. Pat ourselves on the back. You can take any ad account. You can look at the data, what's going on in there, and you can, shift some more spend here, shift some out of here, shift some more over here. That 10-to-1 might be less profitable than the 5-to-1 you were getting before. But we can make it go from 5-to-1 to 10-to-1, and you're going to think that some great results were achieved. This is just like horribly deceptive. Happens all the time. I hate it. That's why I think every conversation about advertising needs to start with just a discussion about profitable growth. Like, what are we really trying to achieve? And
Yeah.
what's really going on under the hood here? Anyway,
Yeah.
so
I
the
always
return,
appreciate
yeah,
how like honest and nuanced you are about everything. And like I said, I don't know this space very well, but from the little I do see online, I'm sure there's lots of people that are not nearly as nuanced about and don't really understand the nature of a merchant's business model either. And again, I think that's one of the things that you really bring to the table. Um, and there's so many people across startup land in Silicon Valley and everywhere else that aren't focused on actual business fundamentals of like profit, like money in the bank,
mhm,
like making more than you spend, kind of thing. So it's important, to have that focus.
yeah, no,
Um,
I don't know. It seems natural to me, but I don't know. I've been in business for a really long time, so I come at it from the business owner perspective. I think not from the person working inside a large marketing organization perspective. But
yeah,
there's, again, you think about how organizations work. You get some management by objective thing where from up on high, they say we need to achieve this level of return for our shareholders. And that gets translated down into production, make this much stuff, purchasing, do this, and marketing, you need to get these results with this budget. And then it translates in the marketing department into, okay, we need to spend $1 and get 10. So all our goals are going to
yeah,
be about 10-to-1 ROAS for all of these different things we do. And
yeah,
then, it cascades down into a different set of decisions. Meanwhile, the finance people on the other side of the organization would really like those sales to be more profitable, not the less profitable ones.
yeah,
So,
yeah, exactly. Making everybody happy. Well, I think we're about at our time, Cy, but I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun catching up. And where's the best place for people to find you online?
I'll probably go to our website, cyberware.com, or on Twitter, I'm at David Deppner.
Awesome. All right,
Yeah.
man. Talk to you soon.